Well, hello, my friend, and welcome to day 30 of our 31-day journey through the Proverbs. We're almost there, just one more day to go, and I want to thank you for sticking with me here through this very intense journey I think that we've been on. Now, these last two chapters that we're about to read are a little different. They're arranged a little bit differently because kind of like this series where we've had guest contributors, these last two chapters are kind of like guest contributors. They're not written by the same author as the previous 29 chapters. So each chapter is introduced by the author. I'll probably butcher their names. They're a little strange to me, but anyhow, let's go ahead and dive into our text for today, which is, of course, Proverbs chapter 30. And starting in verse 1, it reads, "The words of Agur, the son of Jacob, the revelation. The man says to Ithiel and Ukal, surely I am the most ignorant man, and don't have a man's understanding. I have not learned wisdom, neither do I have the knowledge of the Holy One. Who has ascended up into heaven and descended? Who has gathered the wind in his fists? Who has bound the waters in his garment? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name, and what is his son's name, if you know?" Every word of God is flawless. He is a shield to those who take refuge in him. Don't you add to his words, lest he rebuke you and you be found a liar. Two things I have asked of you. Don't deny me before I die. Remove far from me falsehood and lies. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food that is needful for me, lest I be full, deny you, and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal, and so dishonor the name of my God. Don't slander a servant to his master, lest he curse you and you be held guilty. There is a generation that curses their father and doesn't bless their mother. There is a generation that is pure in their own eyes, yet are not washed from their filthiness. There is a generation, oh, how lofty are their eyes, their eyelids are lifted up. There is a generation whose teeth are like swords, and their jaws like knives, to devour the poor from the earth, and the needy from among men. The leech has two daughters. Give, give. There are three things that are never satisfied, four that don't say enough: the grave, the barren womb, the earth that is not satisfied with water, and the fire that doesn't say enough. The eye that mocks at his father and scorns obedience to his mother, the ravens of the valley will pick it out, the young eagles will eat it. There are three things which are too amazing for me, four which I don't understand: the way of an eagle in the air, the way of a serpent on a rock, the way of a ship in the middle of the sea, and the way of a man with a maiden. So is the way of an adulterous woman. She eats and wipes her mouth and says, I have done nothing wrong. For three things the earth trembles, and under four it can't bear up: for a servant when he is king, a fool when he is filled with food, for an unloved woman when she is married, and a servant who is heir to her mistress. There are 4 things which are little on the earth, but they are exceedingly wise. The ants are not a strong people, yet they provide their food in the summer. The hyraxes are but a feeble folk, yet make their houses in the rocks. The locusts have no king, yet they advance in ranks. You can catch a lizard with your hands, yet it is in kings' palaces. There are 3 things which are stately in their march, 4 which are stately in going. The lion, which is mightiest among animals and doesn't turn away for any, the greyhound, the male goat, and the king against whom there is no rising up. If you have done foolishly in lifting up yourself, or if you have thought evil, put your hand over your mouth. For as the churning of milk produces butter, and the wringing of the nose produces blood, so the forcing of wrath produces strife. Well, I think this chapter is really living up to its name. If you remember back in chapter 1, it was talking about the riddles, for understanding the riddles of the wise. It seems like there was a lot of riddles in this chapter. Well, what I did today is I talked to a couple of people about this chapter, and specifically I talked to my daughter Carly. And Carly is 14, going to be 15 in a couple of months here, and asked her what she got out of it. And she said, they sure say the number 4 a lot. And I thought, what a great observation. They do. This is a really great literary device that they use all throughout this chapter. There are 3 things, nay, 4, that... So anyhow, I thought that was cute. But she also said that this verse right here kind of caught her attention. And that is verses 8 and 9, where it says, "Remove far from me falsehood and lies. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food that is needful for me, lest I be full, deny you, and say, 'Who is the Lord?' Or lest I be poor and steal, and so dishonor the name of my God." And I think, and specifically what she said about this was, some people want money, 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 and they think that's the answer to their problems. I think that's a very astute observation for a 15-year-old or 14-year-old. So I appreciate her pointing out this verse, because this verse for me has been a verse that has really made me think an awful lot. There's so much going on in this verse. And why is it? Why is it that people seek after money to solve their problems? And I think we can find the answer right here in this chapter. If we look at this verse, these 2 verses, in verse 15 it says, "The leech has 2 daughters. Give, give." There are 3 things that are never satisfied, 4 that don't say enough. The grave, the barren womb, the earth that is not satisfied with water, and the fire that doesn't say enough. Enough already. And so I think the problem is that we humans have a hard time knowing when to say enough. Enough already. Enough is enough. I have enough. I have more than enough. That's not usually what you find people saying. What you find people saying is, I need more. I need more. I need a lot more. But like my daughter said, the problem is not, or the solution is not in having more money. But what I think is interesting about this verse is that, first of all, it starts out by, well, he asks for two things. He begs for two things. And so one of them is give me neither poverty nor riches. But the first thing he asks about is remove falsehood and lies far from me. These things that are deceitful, take those things away. Whether they be external things, such as sometimes the lure of wealth can be deceitful, but sometimes there's internal things. Sometimes we can lie to ourselves, or lie on our taxes, or lie about what our true desires really are. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in, before you even start talking about poverty or riches, is to talk about deceit. Talk about your heart and the things that can deceive your heart. Now, I had mentioned earlier that I have really kind of struggled with this verse, because he's saying, give me neither poverty or riches. Just give me what I need. Because if you give me too much, I'm going to forget about God. If you don't give me enough, I'm going to rob. And I just thought, how do you know for sure? I mean, that seems pretty lame. That seems, or not lame, but it seems like you have no faith. Like, hey, it's basically what I feel like he's saying is, don't test me. Don't give me any challenges. Don't give me too much money, because I don't trust God. I don't trust myself. I don't trust anybody to make the right decision here. And don't give me poverty, because I just know that I'm going to screw up, and I'm going to, rob or steal or do whatever I have to do, whether illegal, immoral, or unethical, to make ends meet. So I think that's something that is like, I'm not sure if that's really the wisest way to go about things. But again, I've stated before that the Proverbs are just kind of a general guideline. This is this guy's, he's not saying this is the way you should be and this is the way everybody should be for all time. These are just riddles to consider. They're invitations to come in and think about it more. Now, let's talk about the poverty thing, and this whole idea of like, well, unless if I'm rich and I have all this money, then I'm going to be full and I'm going to deny you. Okay. And I mentioned I talked to a couple of people. Another person I talked to about this was my sister, and my sister Julie, and she said, it's really true. Oftentimes what people do is, when times are tough, they get down on their knees and they pray. But when times are going swimmingly, where do you find them? Out swimming. You don't see them down on their knees and praying. And I thought, that's a really great point. When you have everything you need, health, wealth, people tend to not get down on their knees. It's only when they really need something. How many church bulletins are filled with prayers of gratitude? Not really many. How many all-night prayer sessions or prayer chains or days of prayer and fasting are held when people are doing well and their businesses are thriving and everything is just going hunky-dory? That never happens. So it's obvious to see in our nature, we tend to coast when things are going well. So I can understand what he's saying. And of course, this also brings up this passage. This is actually reminiscent of a passage in Deuteronomy chapter 8 in verses 10 through 18. It says, "When you have eaten and are satisfied, praise the Lord your God for the good land he has given you. Be careful that you do not forget the Lord your God, failing to observe his commands, his laws, and his decrees that I am giving to you this day. Otherwise, when you eat and are satisfied, and when you build fine houses and settle down, and when your herds and flocks grow large, and your silver and gold increase, and all you have is multiplied, then your heart will become proud and you will forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. He led you through that vast and dreadful wilderness, that thirsty and waterless land with its venomous snakes and scorpions. He brought you water out of hard rock. He gave you manna to eat in the wilderness, something your ancestors had never known, to humble and test you so that in the end it might go well with you. You may say to yourself, "My power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me." But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth and so confirms His covenant, which He swore to your ancestors as it is today. So I think there's definitely some wisdom in not looking to wealth to solve all of our problems, because we have this tendency. But there's also this balance here. It doesn't mean to go the other way as well. It doesn't mean, well, I guess poverty is the only safe place to be. Abraham Lincoln once said, "You cannot help the poor by becoming one of them." I thought that was such a great saying. You cannot help the poor by becoming one of them. So I think it's the main point of all of this is just to not look to money, to not look to your bank account for happiness. It's to look to God and to trust God that He's going to take care of you no matter what. As you remember in, I think it's Philippians, where Paul said, "I can do all things through Him who gives me strength." And that's a very empowering place to be. When you look to money to solve your problems for you, that's a very disempowering place to be, because what's happening is you're not being present. You're not in the present moment. You're saying, I don't have everything that I need right now. And if you stop and think, if you just stop right now, take a breath, and just say, I have everything I need right now in this moment. Are you lacking anything? I mean, there might be some things that you want that you don't have, but the fact of the matter is, you could probably say, you look back on your life and say, I've always had everything that I've needed. And so that's the thing about money, is it takes you out of the moment, and it keeps you from thinking about right now, right here, right now. I have everything I need. I always have. Why would I think that would be any different in the future? Well, there's a ton more that I could say about this. I would love to say about this. I wanted to read, I'll just reference it right now. In Luke chapter 12, Jesus is talking about the rich fool, and how the rich fool wanted to, just because wanting riches is a very natural human instinct, because we want to store up things for ourselves, because we want to feel that safety and security. And Jesus was saying to this guy, hey, I've stored up all of these things for myself. I'm going to build bigger barns, and hey, your very life is going to be demanded from you this evening. So you're thinking about the future, and you're planning for the future, which is great. We've talked about that in the Proverbs as well, but not putting all of our trust in there. Jesus also said in Matthew chapter 6, verse 26, "Look at the birds of the air. They do not reap or store away in barns like this rich fool did, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they?" I love talking about this, as you can tell, but what I want to do right now is go on to my guest response. This is from Carol from Chicago, Illinois, and I think she's kind of on the same wavelength here. She's saying, time and time again, the sufficient grace and mercy of God has provided me with my daily needs. These needs include delivering me from my sinful nature and the things in this world. And Carol's affirmation is, I will focus my eyes on Jesus so that I will not have love for the things of this world or myself. Carol, thanks so much for your contribution. Thanks so much for chiming in and being on this wavelength of like just trusting God daily that our needs are going to be taken care of. It's such a happy and empowering place to be. So thank you, Carol. Thank you to my sister, to my daughter for engaging in conversation about this really powerful chapter in the book of Proverbs. Thank you so much for joining. There's still time if you want to leave a comment, leave your thoughts. What kind of takeaway did you get out of this chapter? Maybe it was something completely different. Do you have an affirmation for us as well? And I think, let me just go back because I think I forgot to put my affirmation, which is, I am content with enough. This was actually Carly's affirmation. I asked her if it would be all right. She said, yeah, that sounds like a good affirmation. I am content with enough. I'm content with enough. All right, well, go in peace, as they say, and enjoy this day where you have enough, you have plenty, you are enough. You are enough, you have enough, all that good stuff. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.